Hello, fabulous you. I am here with Denise Smith with Piece of Thread in Grayson, and we're going to learn about Denise and her story. And so, Denise, will you start off just telling us about you? Where are you from? Um, just give us a little bit about you.
That's a big question where I'm from. I was in Ohio until I was 16. I left a little tiny town out in the country on a small horse farm um, with all the peeps that I grew up with my whole entire life. And I went to Miami, Florida Bible College
Oh,
in 1975.
okay.
So you can do the math. I graduated early from high school. And unfortunately, my parents were going through a divorce. This was back in the day when my mother was a realtor,
Okay.
and everybody knew her, and everybody knew my dad. He was a blue collar Greyhound bus driver. And we moved from Columbus to the country when I was 6.
Mm.
And so I really don't have many memories before, other than the fact that I lived on the same street with my grandma and grandpa, my aunts and uncles.
Oh.
And then we had to move. And so to the country meant 25 miles southeast of Columbus, close to Amish country, very, very like a sweet spot of America. Of course, you don't know that when you're a kid.
Mm-mm.
But when I went to Miami, Florida, and I stepped off of a Greyhound bus, I was like, oh my goodness, culture slapped me. Smells, sights, sounds, everything was different.
Right.
And that was the 70s. And so that was back when Cuba was coming over on boats into Miami. And back then we just had the newspaper.
Right.
That's all we had. That's how we got our good journalists to tell us stories. And I was attracted to them. Well, in Bible college, that's when I really kind of found out a little bit more about my faith and whether I was really going to continue to live my life out in front of people with my faith, or take my faith with all my hurt and kind of put it on a shelf. And so I kind of did that for a little bit, but trying to figure out why it was on the shelf was really because of my hurt.
Okay.
Of my family. And so I had to own my own, even though I was studying the Bible, and people already, if I tell you I went to Bible college, they put you in a bucket already, like, oh, you're a spirit. No, wasn't. I was still trying to figure it out, but I was just studying God's word as well.
Right.
And so I was young. I was 16, just in this small little place in a big Miami. That's where I really got to learn about culture and about different colors of culture.
Right.
And this food of culture, which is delightful. And so, from the Jewish community to the Cuban community that began to build there, to the horse community, because there's in Hialeah, it's the famous Hialeah racetrack.
Okay.
I was working at a place called Burdines, which is kind of it's like a Macy's or a Dillard's in Belk down. And so I was working full time, going to school, and that's how God really used that time in my life to say I had to sink or swim. And because I was raised on the farm and had to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and go break the ice for the horses, and if I didn't, I'd get a big whooping from my dad. But that's just what we, because horses can die without water in the wintertime. And so you learn when you're on a farm, there's always something to do. You got to work hard.
Mm-hmm.
The animals need you. You have no day off.
Right.
Everybody has to do their part. And so I think that was instilled in me to never give up, to it was the tenacity that was kind of deep rooted into me from working the land and digging postals for the fences and all that kind of stuff. So I think that's where I really God started to season me into a missional mind of the bigger kingdom than where I was at, where everybody looked the same in Ohio.
Right.
And we just all did the same thing. And it was Future Farmers of America and Future Homemakers of America. And everybody had a pig or sheep or cow or horse that they showed at the farm. So that was my small little world, too, like a bigger world of, wow, there's a lot out here. And then,
Exactly.
you know, so of course the beaches were there.
Yes.
That was like a plus when you're a teenager.
That is.
And, but, you know, that's really just where I met God.
Mm-hmm.
Or I should say it better, that like it was all about me, and then all of a sudden it became about Him. And God started inviting me in and speaking to me in a different way.
That was
even though I had still put my faith on that shelf,
right,
and it was still wrapped up with all kinds of hurt and confusion, it was slowly coming away. Well, that's where I met my husband.
Okay.
And so we've been married, it'll be 48 years.
All right.
On the 15th of this month.
Congratulations.
So, yeah, it's a big thing. I mean,
that is.
Marriage is the hardest thing to work at in life.
It's work. It sure is.
It is. But it's also a great joy when you don't know what you did when you stood at the altar. And so going through some very, very difficult journeys in our life have proven that I'm thankful I said yes.
Oh, good. Well,
Yeah.
we are too. That's fantastic. Well, I met Denise through Grace New Hope. So we attend church together, and that's when I first learned about Piece of Thread. And I have purchased 3 amazing bags from them. So let's hear about Piece of Thread and how the ministry began and how it's thriving now.
Okay. So it'll be almost 15 years this summer. We came back from, we were missionaries, kind of workers over in the Near East field. We served the Iraq, Lebanon, Syria, and Jordan. We lived between Damascus and Beirut in the mountains in a village. And that's kind of where I learned about who I was as an American believer, follower of Jesus, into a very different culture of that didn't look anything like mine. Even though I had been exposed to different cultures in Miami, it was not the same.
Right.
And I had been in lots of different cultures, studying the world. But when God took us overseas for almost 7 years, I learned how to find the woman that was hidden. Or actually, I should say they found me because I was the spectacle. Like, they knew who I was.
Right.
I didn't know who they were.
Right.
And so I just started cooking with them, and I learned my colors and my numbers and shapes, and just with our little 9-year-old neighbor that lived in our building with us. And I would teach her how to make brownies because she'd never had a brownie before.
Okay.
And I learned some Arabic, and so that's how Arabic started. We were there for almost 7 years, and then we came home because of my aging parents. It was time for me to give my time towards the family. And so that's what brought me home, back to the States, I should say. And I didn't know how to live here anymore. We actually came home every Christmas because we were grandparents.
Okay.
And so we were kind of in this like finishers category. We had some resources of knowledge from just our age and being older and leaving everything here in Grayson. And we didn't know why God was taking us. We had clearly had found this community to just be a place where it was called it used to be called the best kept secret. Do you remember that sign?
I totally remember that. Yes. No more secrets.
There's no more secret. The sign is actually down, so it's not up anymore. But we moved here from Lilburn and to take care of my aging father-in-law.
Right.
And so when we left here and went to Lebanon and we came back, I was like, what am I going to do here? What do I put on my resume? I moved people around in Muslim countries in the Middle East. We brought lots of teams in. I can't even tell you. We managed the whole field. It was a lot. So what am I going to do? Am I going to work at Kroger? I don't want to work at a church. I want to be with people. I want to go to culture. And so our church at the time was over in Snellville, and we decided, I know one day I was like surfing the internet and found out, why do they have like Muslim women at the church. What's going on? So I called and I said, what are they doing? And they were like, well, Denise, you need to come down and you need to check us out. We are doing a kind of an outreach where we're bringing some of the refugees to Snellville, and we're trying to match families up in the community so that they could become their friends. And I'm like, oh, that sounds like fun. Well, so I went and volunteered for that. And then I got a phone call that was invited to come down to Clarkston to do this was almost 15 years ago, and the big word was ISIS. Yeah. And that was what was on the news. And so the Iraqi refugees were flying in here. I mean, they were coming in by leaps and bounds. And we had worked with them over in Lebanon.
Yes.
And so when we came back home, we decided they were doing these young kids that were going to do a study abroad from Georgia Tech and Georgia State, asked me to come down and do something with the women, the Iraqi women. They had to find a problem and a solution. And the problem was, well, the new kids had come in from this for refugee camps, and they had not been in school for a long time.
Right.
So they were going to do a mock American classroom to get them ready to go to school. Okay. Which was a great idea. Definitely a problem with all the women moms were standing around doing nothing, and they didn't understand what was going on. They didn't understand English, so the kids were learning and excited in this very hot summer. But so they're like, Denise, could you come down and do something with the women? And I'm like, I have no idea what I do. But, I gave the diplomatic answer, which is, I'll pray about it.
Yeah.
You know that answer?
Yes.
When you don't really know what to say. And so I did that. And before the phone went back on the wall, that's when the phone was still on the wall.
Right.
And
cord.
Yes. And I said, I thought, man, I could make some cookies, and I know they like their tea, and I could take a blanket and welcome them to our country. And so that's how it all started. There was no piece of thread. There was no agenda. There was no business plan. There was no money. I even had to call my friends a couple of times and say, hey, could you give me $10? I have no money. I don't have a job. I'm really I don't know what I'm going to do, but they want me to come down to Clarkston, and I don't have enough gas in my car. And so, yeah, I mean, it was just like, let's just do this. And so we went down, and I went down, and I would cry all the way back to Grayson. Like, I don't want to live in Grayson. I want to live in the culture. I don't want to live there. I made cookies for all my neighbors when I came back, and they like almost shut the door on me. Like, why are you? Because I was just saying, hey, we're back. Sorry, we rented the house at different times for different people. And it was always somebody that needed a house, because a house that they were moving from was going to the field or coming off the field, and I needed a place. Somebody always was in need,
right,
in the church. And so anyway, I was just welcoming my home, and they didn't accept that very well. Like the neighborhood had I think I thought that everybody knew me, but I guess they forgot who I was. And that reminded me again how much more important our neighbors really are. And so finding our stories and hearing our stories are really important.
Extremely
important. So anyway, that's how it all started. Okay. And we began just by becoming friends on the blanket. And then 2 days later, God woke me up and said, Denise, you've sewed your whole life. Maybe they'd want to sew. Oh, wow. So I signed up for 2 weeks, and here we are almost 15 years later.
Oh my gosh.
And not knowing anything about owning a business. I still don't. Sometimes I go, I don't know how to do this, but God just puts people that I don't know what to do. And I'd say, will you come sit at the table with me? I know you know this.
Right.
And if you don't know, maybe you do know somebody that would know.
Yes.
And so I just inviting people into the story of what God was writing. I wasn't writing it. I was just sitting at the table, and I wanted others to come sit at the table, and I wanted others to come meet these women, because they were so beautiful and they were so excited to meet us.
Yes.
But they felt like nobody loved them, and nobody wanted them here. And they really didn't know how to become our friends, because they were so segregated from us. Exactly. So different. But yet at the same time, we didn't need to get a plane ticket. We didn't need a passport. We didn't need anything except for just, to be their friend. And so that's how we started for 2 weeks.
Nice.
And they became so addicted to it that the tea that we had every day became the center on the floor with a machine. Cookies were always a part of it, as some kind of biscuit that they had made, some kind of leftover food that they invited us, and just learning how to do scissors, learning how to cut a pattern. And it was, when you don't have anything to do and you're now next to people that are from your country that you would never want to be part of.
Right.
Because they were from different tribes.
Right.
And they didn't know how, so we had to teach them how to live in peace. So the word peace became like a thread literally in our voices every day. Everything that we spoke about was about peace and being neighborly in a place of peace, because we are now in a different setting of what they were used to or what they had run from. And so, that's it. And so we started, again, we didn't have anything. Every week I would get together with another friend of mine, Erin Burchak. I don't know if you know her, but we would just sit down and say, okay, so how did this week go?
Right.
Should we keep going? Well, I guess the women love it. And they would literally, I'd pull into the Clarkson Oaks, into the townhome, and I would just say, the women were like literally looking out the window, waiting for me.
Oh,
and ready to have another day of friendship. And so that's really where Piece of Thread, the heart of Piece of Thread, started, on a blanket with tea and cookies. Something that, and then this old woman that had blonde hair that showed up that knows some Arabic. And so we got to laugh about, Arabic and English, and learning the together of different languages, and then learning each other's culture and embracing it. Not looking at what they do that is wrong, but looking at it and saying, that's a great idea. Like, we can learn from one another.
That's right.
So that's where the word empower came from.
Yes.
So we are women that empower other women.
Yes. Well, one thing I love about the story, because I haven't heard this whole story before, so how the name came about, that is amazing. And just inviting people to come and sit together and fellowship together, and welcoming them in, like you welcomed them in. And don't we all want to be welcomed?
I do.
And invited to the table. So that is beautiful. So
that's what Grayson is really about. I mean, I think that just when you're building a community that it was fragmented, and now you're trying to bring it into a more local feel of, we all have a place here.
That's right.
That's where it gets exciting, because, and it just doesn't happen overnight as we want it to. It takes time.
Definitely.
So to be here since in the Grayson community since 2001, we have definitely seen how it got separated, how they were just trying different things.
Okay.
But I really feel like we're like finding each other now.
Yes.
And the rail yard has really become a place of finding each other.
Yeah, the rail yard has been a wonderful thing to come to Grayson. Yeah, so I'm very excited about that. Well, you guys make some beautiful pieces.
Yeah.
I mean, so many, and they all have a story.
And a name.
And a name.
So every bag, all of our, when I literally said I didn't have anything, I did have my sewing machine, my scissors, and my seam ripper, which is my best friend. We don't even call it our seam ripper. So those are the only three things I had. I didn't have any fabric, nothing, zero. Just those three things went to the Lebanon and came back with me. And so I went to another church in Marietta and told the story of where we were. And they were looking at taking a team abroad one day of women. And so, women, we love to retell stories.
Yes. We
hear a story if it's a good story. Sometimes we embellish it. Sometimes we forget things. But this lady, in the room, one of the ladies was a hairdresser, and she went and retold a story of one of her clients that had just come back from a mission field. And so she said, "Oh, well, do you think she needs some fabric?" And she goes, "I don't know. I think she does, because she doesn't really know what they're doing yet." But she said that, they were just starting. They'd only been in it for a couple weeks, and they didn't know what they were going to do. And she said, "Well, there's a place called ADAC. It's Atlanta Decorative Arts Center. It's in Buckhead. It's the most expensive fabrics in the entire world, and it's at our fingertips." I'd never heard of it. Of course, I knew Joanne Fabrics. Of course, everybody.
Yes.
And And so, but I didn't know, I'd never heard of it. So she said, do you think that she could come down and get some? And, but it's known to the trade only, so you can't go in unless you have a designer
Okay.
license, unless you're invited. And so you can't buy anything there. Well, she called me the next day and said, "If when can you come? I've got some tickets for you to get in." And I'm like, "I'll come now."
Yeah.
Like, I didn't have anything going on. I called a couple of my friends that had big vehicles and said, "Let's go. They've got fabric for us." We had no idea what we were walking into. It's it's like a mall of interior fabrics. So couches are $80,000, and I mean, you just can't imagine that you're in this place of luxury.
Right.
And so they take all these textiles that come in every single week, and they have to go through them and decide, what they're going to put them up, and then pull stuff that maybe there's too many of it. And so because the textile companies make too much, and they throw it away in our garbage, in our landfills every single day. Well, I was like, so we got like 8 or 10 bags of shopping bags filled with designer fabrics, and I didn't even know what that meant.
Right.
I just knew Joanne Fabric stuff,
Yeah.
And then we started looking at it, and it was from Belgium, and it was from France, and it was from Germany, and it was, like the silks from Korea, and it was like anywhere from $200 to $800 a yard.
Oh,
and then the leathers were like even more from Italy. It was incredible. And these hides of leather like going in the garbage,
right,
and all this fabric. And so I'm like, we could possibly do something with this.
Yes.
So we just went and fell on our knees and asked God, like, how could we use this, And we started with an iPad or a tablet, like sleeve, because that was 15 years ago, and that was the first time that a tablet started coming out. That was the first tablet. It wasn't even called an iPad.
Right.
It was just a tablet pad. So we thought, okay, well, let's make them like a little vintage. Anyway, so we did that for a little bit, and we sold them. And the first time that we ever did it was on Martin Luther King Day.
Aww. That
we actually got to give the women a paycheck.
Yay.
And every single one of them got $100. And I will never forget that day where they began to dream about what their place in America was going to look like. And so before it was just like a little hobby and something we got to do to drink coffee or tea and eat cookies together. But now this could be a business. This could be something that we could all learn together.
Right.
So here we are. And now we have all this fabric and beautiful that we create, these beautiful one of a kind. Each bag has the name of the lady, the country she's from, and a little bit about her story. There's a QR code that takes you to our website, which is pieceofthread.com. It's PEACE. And it will, you can see all of their stories, all of the artisans.
That is so cool. It's just a beautiful story of these women who have had trials and tribulations and come through made it to the U.S. and now you're providing them with
dignity.
Jobs
and
dignity. Yes.
Yeah.
So thank you, Denise. And I know you said it's not about you. It's God is the one orchestrating all of this, but you were willing to be a part of it, and that's what makes it beautiful. So thank you.
The showing up part is the hardest
part. Showing up.
That's the hardest part.
Every day.
Yeah.
Yes.
Showing up.
Well, I appreciate you taking time to give us more information about Piece of Thread. And y'all come to Grayson. Come check out the beautiful bags. And, they just have a little bit of everything. You can find something for all of your family and friends.
Yes.
And support these beautiful ladies. So we're going to end just... Is there anything else you would like to share about Piece of Thread that you haven't already said?
Oh my goodness.
I know there's a lot.
There's so many stories, but just specifically because this is about our local Grayson.
Yes.
One of the opportunities that came to us about 2.5 years ago was through a young lady that we met. Her name is Taiba. And she's from Afghanistan. So when Afghanistan fell, she ended up here in Grayson, and took a walk one day. I'm going to do this Reader's Digest version.
Okay.
And when I say took a walk, it was like a 3-mile walk. She didn't have a phone. She didn't know where she was. She actually got separated from her mom and sisters and at the airport, and she stayed 5 days in the airport waiting for her mom and sisters to come in, and then she had to make a decision to either go back out into Afghanistan to try to find them or get on the plane and leave. Now she didn't know where she was going. She didn't know anything, nothing. So the Army gentleman said, you have to choose today. And so she got on the plane. They took her to Qatar to Washington, D.C. They put her under an immigration desk for 2 days. And because she was a young female, 15 years old, unaccompanied minor, and they didn't know what to do with her. There was a lot of young men, but not girls. Okay. And so they ended up sending her to Chicago, and she was in Chicago for 3 months at a shelter in Chicago. And then she came to Grayson because she had an uncle that lived in Grayson, and he was very kind to bring her home. And the story is difficult because it wasn't a good fit for her. And so when she took that walk, she ended up here at Grayson Park and sat on a bench and looked across the street, and here's this church that sits on the corner, and she said everybody there, all the moms looked happy, and she said she just kept praying and asking God, take me to somebody that can help me find my way. I want to go to school. And so she went over, and she didn't have much English. She only had 3 months of English before she even came. And she asked for food, and there was a barrel that was underneath of the port, and they collect food for the Southeast Co-op. And but when she went to get it, when the person directed her to the barrel, there was no food. And so she was kind of sad, and she didn't know what to do, but she had to walk back home, which was at Ozora in 78, not a quick walk. And it was winter. And so she came back 2 weeks later, and to that same place to look for food. Only this time, one of the pastors came out and saw her on camera, and had done a couple of tours in Afghanistan. And so he was able to do a little bit of conversing, just some greetings, but said, do you know about the co-op? And she, of course, didn't even know what that meant. So through conversation, ended up going over to co-op, called Laura Drake. Laura met them, got her a phone, got her food, got some information that didn't make sense, and found that she wasn't in school, and we needed to find out why. So she contacted Randy, which is our pastor, and Randy was leaving town, and he said, you need to contact Denise. She works with women and children in the refugee community. She might be able to help you. So that led us to going and meeting Taiba for the first time at her uncle's place. And from that day forward, she kind of became a very special young lady to me.
Yes.
And to this community. We actually have a team Taiba now.
Aww.
And she graduated from Grayson High School. We got her in school. Graduated from Grayson High School with honors, and worked in the community at Smoothie King. She works at Kroger and is now working at the dentist here right next to Publix.
Oh, wonderful.
And so she is getting empowered. And on top of that, her mom and sisters arrived for the first time in 3 years that she has not seen her mom and her sisters. But Team Grayson, Team Taiba, all of the women and children went moms, and I can't even tell you, moms, daughters, picked her up, took her to work, helping her find her way, getting tutors, food, anything and everything that Taiba might need to be able to be empowered to survive.
Yes.
If you can imagine as a mother having your 15-year-old in another country and asking God to provide safety and care and somebody that would love her and not hurt her.
Right.
And this community of Grayson has done that, and it's just been a joy to watch. And she's still sitting here in this community, and this is where this is her community. She doesn't want to leave this community. She knows that this is where she saw God show up and answered her call out to him, that bring me to somebody that could help. And I think that shows the heart of this community, that they really do want an opportunity to share in the things that we have been given, and we have been given so much.
You're so blessed.
We're so blessed. So it's a joy.
That is awesome.
So that's really one of my big things. And then, so it's Finney, my mother passed away December 8th, and Tab and I kept praying, like, God, please don't make this happen at the same time where my mom comes and then grandma leaves. And she called her grandmother, but and it actually did happen. And so on the day that her mom and sisters were arriving at the Atlanta airport was the same day that I was leaving to take my mom back to her resting place in Ohio. And so her mom never got to meet my mom, but today the beauty stands that for Christmas, my grandchild, one of my grandchildren and my husband, got me this piece of jewelry. It's my mother's thumbprint, and on it has a birth date and her ending date and her Bible verse that she lived by, which was Ephesians. And then lays next to it is the pearl that Taiba's mother brought to me as a thank you for being the mom to her. And so the blessings just keep rolling, and the hard tears are going to come in our journey, but so are mountaintops. Wow. So the story of Grayson is big in the deep love that I have for this community. I just want every woman to be able to carry a piece of thread bag and to know their story, and to come see and visit and hear how they can be a part.
Thank you so much.
Sorry.
It's beautiful. God's love is beautiful. I thank you so much for being a part.
Nerd.
Thank you for sharing your heart today. It's been a blessing to me, and I hope it's been a blessing to everyone who hears your story, God's story, and all the ladies' stories. Come support Piece of Thread and prepare to be blessed. And you're given an opportunity to support amazing ladies that are going to be so appreciative. So thank you for being here. I'm Tania Wilson, creating meaningful relationships through real estate. And this is Denise Smith. Come support Piece of Thread. And we wish you so many blessings.